So in the first video, we spent some time kind of diving into the beginnings of dinosaur paleontology and how the study of dinosaurs really kind of came to be. We're going to, in this second video, kind of see a transition in a few different categories as far as dinosaur paleontology goes. So I'm going to first start with a picture here. Of just how drastically our viewpoint and our thoughts and kind of everything about dinosaurs has drastically changed over the history of dinosaur paleontology. If we, take a look at the picture over on the left-hand side, we're looking at dinosaurs as more of these lumbering, very slow, just huge lizards, right, that need water to support their bodies because they're too big, tails dragging on the ground, shifting over towards what you see over on the right-hand side, a very dynamic, active, not all dinosaurs are large, and an introduction to feathers. So there's just a huge shift in how dinosaur paleontology looked at and understood dinosaurs as a group. So what was the impetus, or what was the cause for that shift, and kind of how did that go about? One of the biggest shifts here was this idea of paleontology having sub topics or subcategories within it. And one of those highly instrumental categories is this idea of paleobiology. So trying to understand ecosystems that are fossil, meaning that are extinct or gone, that we don't have anymore. And how do the ecosystems as a whole interact with other ecosystems, but within an ecosystem, how do specific species and organisms and populations relate to each other? So if you remember in the last video, the whole idea of paleontology, dinosaur paleontology in particular, in the beginning was collection, right? How many different species can you name? Putting bones together to form a skeleton from multiple different specimens, and sometimes putting them together incorrectly. What we're seeing now is, yes, the species and the specimens are important, but now that we have so many, let's try to understand them and their relationships to each other, and their relationships to the broader ecosystem, hence the paleobiology. And one of the influential characters in this idea of behavior and understanding how dinosaurs worked is John Ostrom, specifically his work on Deinonychus, the dinosaur that you can see there in the bottom right-hand corner. And as you can see, the picture of Deinonychus there is very different than the black and white or gray one from a couple slides ago. And what John Ostrom, or Dr. Ostrom, was trying to interpret or get across to the rest of the dinosaur paleontology community is that there should be a shift in how we view dinosaurs, from these lumbering, slow, essentially reptiles, lizards, right, to a more dynamic organism that, as you can see there, is more endothermic. Okay, not warm-blooded or cold-blooded. We need to get rid of those terms, but endothermic, the ability to generate their own body heat. Very active lifestyle. And he got that viewpoint from a couple of different things. One, you can see in the picture, just the weapons that this organism had. Why would an organism need weapons like that if it's not actively hunting or being an active predator? Secondly, the skeleton had long bones, or this is a metatarsal, so a lower leg bone of Deinonychus. And based on comparative anatomy to modern organisms, this bone is extremely long compared to the upper leg bones. And what we know from modern organisms that have the same really long tibia, fibia, and like ankle and toe bones is that they're fast. The longer those bones are, the faster you are. Just think about horses and cheetahs and things like that. Their lower leg bones are quite a bit longer than their upper leg bones. So, the evidence that John Ostrom gained from Deinonychus is trying to shift the paleontological community to think a little bit differently about dinosaurs. Other things that kind of came about was getting rid of Thecodont, that term, which you can see is created by our guy, Richard Owen, trying to also figure out where do dinosaurs fit in the hierarchy of the tree of life, categorizing dinosaurs. We got so many of them. How are they related to each other? That's an important aspect of paleontology today. And then the idea that modern birds are dinosaurs. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about those. First, Thecodonts, just an old term. As you can see, they're dealing with teeth. And the problem with this group is that it's not monophyletic. Okay, and what that means is that the Thecodont group doesn't have any characteristics that all of those members of that group have that no other groups have, making it special, making it its own thing. So the way that paleontology works, the way that evolutionary biology works, is we use something called cladistics, which is just putting organisms into groups based on those special characteristics that they only have, and then kind of broadening those characters out into larger and larger groups. Thecodonts don't have that, so paleontologists just got rid of it in order to kind of move away from that. So then moving over towards, where did dinosaurs come from, right? So we have all these different specimens. How did dinosaurs come about? And well, they came from dinosaurs, right? If you take a look at this diagram, this is a cladogram. Like I said, kind of a nests of larger and larger, or the other way, smaller and smaller groups based on those shared derived characteristics or those special characters, right? So if we take a look at dinosaurs here, right, this whole group from ceratopsians to birds, all of that, all of those organisms have a set of characteristics that make them dinosaurs. And they're dinosaurs, and the very first dinosaur had those things, and that's what makes that group a dinosaur. That's a smaller group nested inside of things called archosaurs. Okay, and archosaurs include dinosaurs, but they also include things like pterosaurs and crocodiles and their relatives. All of those things, all of these organisms, again, have a shared set of characters. Okay, and what current paleontologists do is they use computer programs and databases and algorithms to take a look at and compile all of those different characters, and then the algorithms kind of help flesh out who's related to based on those different character sets. And based on those cladistics and taking a look at those shared characteristics, we kind of had to move away from an old viewpoint of different relationships between dinosaurs. Like I said, there are so many different specimens, so many different species. How do we relate them together? And as you can see, before cladistics, carnivores or predatory dinosaurs were grouped based on their size. And I mean, scientists like to make groups, and they make groups based on characteristics that they can see, right? So why would we put an organism with a tooth like this with an organism that's still predatory, right? With teeth that are, that big. Okay, that's the old viewpoint of grouping, right? So why would we put a T-Rex in the same group as a velociraptor? And then, again, it makes sense. All the plant eaters just lump them all together. However, when we take a look at the evolutionary and cladistic evidence, we see that we needed to shake things up a little bit based on those shared derived characteristics. And, one of those shakeups was putting a T-Rex with a velociraptor. Velociraptors are part of the Coelurosaurs, okay? But a T-Rex and a velociraptor have more shared characteristics than a T-Rex and let's say an Allosaurus, okay? So again, it's just a shift in mindset based on what the cladistics tells us. Some really interesting other relationships is that some herbivores, like a long-necked dinosaur that has a tooth like this, are more closely related to a T-Rex than they are to some other herbivorous dinosaurs like a Triceratops. Okay, so again, we have to look at those shared characteristics to figure out this evolutionary tree. One of my favorite parts of Jurassic Park is the idea, or the constant idea that Dr. Grant brings up about how dinosaurs are related to birds, or birds are dinosaurs. And, diving into that, again, if we take a look at the characteristics of modern birds and we compare them to non-avian dinosaurs, okay, so the non-flying, non-modern dinosaurs, they have a closer set of shared characteristics than anything else. So it's fair to say, birds are birds, okay? They've evolved characteristics along the way to say that they're birds, right? But it is also fair to say that birds are dinosaurs because of how they evolved from a group of dinosaurs, okay? Got a couple of cool pictures here for you to kind of take a look at. Upper right-hand corner, we have a modern bird, a cassowary, which is a large, non-flying, to my knowledge, bird. And right below that, this picture right here, is the picture of a cassowary's leg. And the similarities between a cassowary's foot and leg is extremely similar. It's just kind of eerie how similar it is to a T-Rex foot or a T-Rex leg as well. So, when you take a look at a bird, whether it's a chicken or a seagull or a cassowary, you see feathers, right? And you see beaks, and that's the stuff that you see. But there are still some of those remnants left over visibly for us to see that they are part of that dinosaur tree. And just take a look at a chicken's foot, and you'll see something similar to what you'll see on the cassowary. And you can imagine going back in time seeing something similar to the non-avian dinosaurs. One thing that's also changed quite drastically and kind of, to the benefit of dinosaurs is, how dinosaurs went extinct. And, a while ago, paleontologists and science thought that dinosaurs, they just slowly went extinct. They were essentially a failure of life. They couldn't adapt. They couldn't, compete with other organisms. They were outcompeted, and they went extinct. And that extinction was slow. However, as science works, we've been able to gather more information. And the new standpoint when it comes to dinosaur extinction is that it was extremely fast. And I'm not being facetious in saying that it was fast. Okay, we need to kind of put fast in perspective when it comes to 4.6 billion years of Earth history.